Compared to most countries in the world, the Philippines is more open towards providing women with the same opportunities as men, with women holding top positions in the government, including presidents, senators, congresswomen, and cabinet members.
In discrimination, that's the most common. No? At ang sabi ng Korte Suprema, declared in the Bible itself, is the universal norm that women should be treated with love and respect. But through the ages, men have responded to that injunction with indifference due to the hubristic conceit that women constitute the inferior sex. So ang tingin palagi ng lipunan kasi mas mababa yung babae kaysa doon sa lalaki. So ngayon, ini-equalize natin by providing several laws for the protection of women.
However, in the private sector, female employees are still suffering from discrimination and abuse. According to a World Bank report, as of 2010, only 30% of medium-sized enterprises and 20% large enterprises have female managers, and that women employees earn only 76% of their male counterparts.
Under the Magna Carta of Women also, yung faculty member na babae, public man o private school, nagbuntis outside of marriage, dati tinatanggal sa trabaho, ngayon hindi na pwedeng tanggalin yan because that would be discrimination against women.
Many experts have voiced out that though there have been improvements throughout the years, there is still room for improvement, especially in the workforce. In situations like these, what can female employees do to uphold their basic and special rights and benefits in the workplace? What are the laws that state these rights, benefits, and privileges? What government agencies oversee and enforce these rights and privileges? Good evening. You're watching Legal Help Desk on the Solar News Channel. This show is about making the law work for you by giving legal advice on topics that matter to you. I'm Attorney Karen Jimeno.
I'm Attorney Rod Nepomuceno. Tonight, as a continuation of our celebration of Women's Month, we will discuss your legal rights on the topic of women's rights in the workplace.
Our guests for tonight are Ms. Evelyn Lita Manangan, Chief Labor and Employment Officer of Women Workers Development Division of the Bureau of Workers with Special Concerns of the Department of Labor and Employment, and Ms. Beth Angshoko, National Chairperson of Democratic Women's Society of the Philippines. Good evening, ladies.
Good evening. Good evening, Beth. And is it Evelyn? So we call you Evelyn. All right.
Yes.
Thank you for joining us tonight. And again, in celebration of Women's Month, we focus on this. And I think we start off by really maybe focusing on specific laws, particularly in maybe perhaps Evelyn sa Department of Labor or labor laws. Can you highlight?
I guess this emphasizes how important women's rights are in terms of being in the workplace, because our Department of Labor has a specific division just for women's concerns.
Yes. So maybe Ms. Evelyn, can you highlight maybe some of the pertinent laws that are, I guess, very key laws that will protect women in the workplace?
One of the important breakthroughs is the repeal of Article 130 and 131 of the Labor Code, which used to be the women are not allowed to work at night, at certain periods at night, from 10 in the evening to 6 a.m. of the following day. But with the developments now, it has been repealed and we have a new law on the protection of night workers. So the protection does not only extend to women, but also to males. So there are certain requirements and benefits that should be accorded to men and women alike.
So Ms. Evelyn, just to, I guess, summarize the importance of this law. Now, all workers, whatever sector, if they're women workers, they're allowed to work late at night, meaning yung mga night shift.
Yes.
Pwede na. And this is very important, lalo na sa BPO industry where sometimes the work hours are baliktad. They follow other countries, so they start work at 11 p.m., 12 a.m. So now, if your shift is that late and you're a female worker, or this even applies to male workers, are you entitled to the night differential pay?
Yes, the night shift differential pay is required, and that, of course, there are certain provisions, especially to women workers. There's still the protection given to them, especially to pregnant women.
What types of protections, Ms. Evelyn?
Like, for example, they can be relieved from doing this night duty if there is available time or schedule for them, and that they should be protected against discrimination. That is, they should not be dismissed just because of this reason.
So if they refuse, let's just say a woman is pregnant and she refuses to work at night, but most of the operations of, let's say, that BPO is at night. Can she claim that, I guess, can she invoke this law and say that, no, you can't dismiss me, even if the operations of that BPO is mainly at night?
Well, if there is the alternative shift, then they could consider giving her the benefits of workers who are not qualified to work at night. So that's one of the rules.
Even if they're not working, what types of benefits can they get? Is there like a compensation that they can expect?
You mean if they're not allowed to work because they're not fit to work?
Yes, and then there's no alternate shift that is earlier than the evening.
What I recall was that they should be given these benefits like other workers who are, say for example, because of reasons of health, they could no longer report to work.
Work at night.
Yes.
So they have to be given, I guess if they have to, they'll be given, I guess, a separation pay, the appropriate separation pay, right?
Yes.
But can the employer use that? Meaning, can the employer use that as a valid reason? Oh, since you're not working at night and most of our operation is at night, therefore we'll have to let you go. Can an employer justifiably invoke that?
Well, they can use that as a reason, but we also have other remedies in Dole. We have now this SENA, single entry approach. Whatever complaints you have, you can always raise it to the concerned regional office and they can have conciliation proceedings.
All right. Now, can you, Beth, can you talk about this? There's this Magna Carta for women.
Yes.
Can you give us a kind of a brief summary of what it's all about and I guess the teeth behind this Magna Carta?
Actually, the Magna Carta of Women is one of the most revolutionary laws that we have at this point. It provides for all sorts of rights of women. The beauty about Magna Carta of Women when it comes to workers is that beyond those who are formally employed, it also affords provisions. It has provisions, for instance, women workers, women rural workers, small farmers, small fisher folks. Because when we speak about workers, we have to realize that there are many types of workers. And at this point, the majority of women workers are actually not in the formal setup. Meaning, they are out there in the streets, they are out there in their homes working, and these sites become their work sites, their workplaces. And therefore, the beauty of Magna Carta of Women is that it provides the framework so that all these workers who are basically uncovered by the other labor laws will have something to stand on. And that's one of the reasons why we in our group are actually pushing for, it's not just a law, it's still a bill, the Magna Carta of Workers in Informal Economy, which means that these other types of workers, and I tell you, they are the majority of workers now in the country. They number more than 25 million.
Wow.
And
women? You're talking about just women?
Not just women. Not just women. The entire population of workers in the informal economy numbers to more than 25 million. But then, the majority of women who are active in the labor force are in the informal economy. So it's one of the things that should complement the laws that the present laws that we have. And it's nice that there is the Magna Carta of Women because there is a framework.
A framework
now.
already.
Yes.
And Ms. Beth, how long do you think will it take in order for this Magna Carta to become a law?
Unfortunately, it's the 4th Congress that the bill has been filed. But fortunately for this Congress, it looks like the House of Representatives is moving quite fast. Because tomorrow, there's going to be a technical working group in the committee of Congressman Nograles that will put together what we hope would be the committee report, the alternative bill. In the Senate, we're still hoping that the committee of Senator Binay would actually, because we've been promised that there's going to be the committee meeting.
Okay.
We're still
And
waiting.
you think that the current laws are not enough to address the needs of women at the moment? That this Magna Carta is really important?
At the moment, there are very specific laws for very specific issues. And we're actually happy working with DOLE in relation with those who are formally employed because the protections are there.
Protections are there.
The protections are there. Except that I will not consider these laws as special laws for women because they are there to equalize things. They are there in recognition
Of the fact that women are a little disadvantaged.
Yeah, and not only that, we have specific needs, not special needs. For instance, we have maternity benefits because we do get pregnant.
Yes.
And men don't. So
Yeah.
I won't consider that as special.
Yeah.
It's a specific law for women. And going back to the Magna Carta of Workers in Informal Economy, we're hoping that this will go through because this will recognize the rights of and provide for the welfare of those workers who are not presently covered by the labor code.
Okay. I have a question that relates to labor rights actually that are current, and this is with respect to women who are parents and still working, especially single mothers.
Yeah, we have
What types of rights or benefits do single mothers or even those who are married but of course actively raising kids but also working, what type of rights do they have in the workplace?
There's this Solo Parents
Yes.
Welfare Act
Yes.
Okay.
with DSWD as the lead agency, but there's a portion there which talks about parental leave of 7
Yes.
days for the parent, either male or female in that case, to attend to situations when her presence or his presence is needed, like maybe the kid is to have a school study tour or something like that.
What about maternity leave? Currently, how many weeks for natural birth and for cesarean?
For normal delivery, it's 60 days,
Yeah.
and for cesarean,
60 days with pay.
yes,
Yes.
7 to 8 days for
Cesarean.
cesarean.
All right.
Okay, and we have questions from Twitter, and one of them was actually our very own Mai Rodriguez asking.
Who just gave birth.
Yes, exactly. She just gave birth.
Yeah.
She's one of our colleagues here in Solar. She was asking on Twitter, are there rights for children to have daycare in the office? Is that provided in the law?
It's there in the labor code, but it would depend on the rules and regulations as may
the
be set by the Dole Secretary.
Which hasn't been issued. The
There were
IIR.
attempts to issue,
Yes.
but there are cases where, or in most cases, when there were studies done before, very few women avail of this probably because of the distance.
Yeah.
They have to
It's
travel
the
from the
difficulty of bringing your baby
To the daycare of
work.
the, yeah.
And that's the reason why years ago the advocacy actually that we were doing is that daycare centers or child care facilities should be available not just in workplaces but communities should also provide for
You
this.
mean near the house, no?
Yes.
Or even near
Yes.
drop-off points if it's
Yeah.
going to the LRT, sana meron,
Yes.
no?
Yes.
That, so now, if the office does not have a daycare, you can't really complain about that as being
at least not
violative
yet.
of the law.
Not really,
Not yet.
because the
Not-
implementing rules has
Alright.
not been issued as yet. But according to the ECCD law, there are certain tax incentives that can be given to the employer should they come up with ECCD facilities.
okay. Yeah.
So that
That's-
includes
That'll
daycare.
be helpful
daycare.
for the employer.
And I remember Dole used to recognize workplaces that actually really give premium to the welfare of their women workers.
All right. Now we have a couple of questions, some questions from our viewers. Let's start answering them with the help of our guests, of course. Lucy sent this question. I was forced to resign by my boss after learning that I was pregnant with my first child. They didn't give me any reason for my dismissal. They just gave me a form to sign. I was threatened to sign the form or I will not get my wage. What case can I file for this?
This is
I
not
guess
allowed.
Oh, it
It's
sounds
not
like
allowed.
discrimination.
Yeah, it sounds like a
Yeah.
straight out the discrimination case, no?
Yes,
Yeah.
we have this in the labor code. That's a prohibited act. That is dismissal on account of pregnancy.
And so what
But
can...
of course, most often they don't tell you that it's really about the
They usually
pregnancy.
find another
Yeah.
reason. Yeah.
So in this case, what would be her first step? Should she go to the Department of Labor and what department should she go to?
Yeah, they can go to the nearest field office of the Dole.
Yes.
So we have these conciliation procedures.
Okay.
The employer may be informed that this is her right and that something should be done about it. So after a 30-day period of conciliation, if things don't turn out right, if there's no acceptable tawag nito,
Resolution.
agreement,
Resolution,
between
no
the two,
agreement.
then it can be filed as a regular case at the NLRC for illegal dismissal.
And
So
the
it becomes
Magna,
an illegal
Magna
dismissal
Carta
case.
actually also provides for other ways to do things, because the Magna Carta of Women assigns the Commission on Human Rights as the gender ombud.
yes.
And therefore, one of the functions of the Commission on Human Rights is actually to help women who think that they have, been discriminated against to file cases. So that's another way of doing things maybe.
Okay.
Maybe they can work together.
Yes.
CHR can go to DOLE.
Yeah.
proceed
But this,
with
of
filing.
course, the remedy under the Magna Carta is not available until it becomes a law.
The Magna Carta of Women is a law.
Yeah, but it's only for the informal workers
No,
that it's still a bill.
No, yes, you're
Correct.
correct.
Yeah,
Sorry.
okay.
So
You're
the Magna
correct.
Carta is already a law.
I thought
Yeah.
you meant yung mga hindi pa kasama sa workplace. You were also talking about that as a remedy.
This particular case.
Yes, just to clarify.
Yes.
Ma'am Beth is talking about that specific Magna Carta for women that is already a law
Already
in
a law,
effect.
yes.
Yeah.
And that has teeth, right? That has
Yes.
penalties, that has
Yes, it
certain
has,
provisions
it
that
has.
mandate employers to do specific acts. No? All right. Okay.
Okay, we have another question from Kelly, and she's asking, I need advice regarding sexual harassment at work. I am a secretary, and my boss often makes green jokes. At first, I try to ignore these, but sometimes his jokes become offensive, especially when he has guests or colleagues at the office. Can I file for a sexual harassment case against him? Do I need to provide proof of this?
Yeah.
Yes. Beth? Or
Yeah, okay. The law on sexual harassment has been passed in 1994. So it was a long time ago. And be as it may, it provides for protection of the women who, for instance, in this case, the beauty of the law is that it largely depends on the perception of the recipient of the harassment. And I think that if the case is like this, I think she can certainly file. But yes, you've got there are processes involved, of course.
And maybe Ms. Evelyn, can you provide a process, a specific process? In this case, she was feeling that she was being sexually harassed with green jokes. So what specific process does she go to? Again, do they go to the field office?
But internally, there should be a process in the office.
Yes.
They're required to have that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the law requires that they have a
Policy.
policy against
Yes.
sexual harassment. And this will be based on what the law says.
Yes.
So the trouble is when we talk about green jokes, if we are to strictly construe what the law says, there should be this request for sexual favors. So whether or not this was accepted by the victim, then that's it. Still sexual harassment.
If for this to move ahead, this case would move ahead, there has to be a request for a sexual favor. So green jokes in itself will not prosper. Let's
The
say
remedy is they should perhaps include this in their company policy or the rules.
Okay.
So that will be an administrative case against the
more internally rather than
yes,
with the
but not
DOLE.
in court because they still have other remedies like
I see.
Yeah, filing
civil or
sexual
criminal
harassment
case.
cases is tough.
Yeah,
it is, it
because
is.
I think
It's
ibang-iba, I
Evidence,
think a lot of people have this misconception. It's like the sexual harassment laws in other countries where something like this can amount to sexual harassment. But for us, you have to have moral ascendancy, and then again, it has to be in exchange for either
sexual
a
favor,
promotion or you get discriminated if you do not, for instance, give a sexual favor. So it's very specific.
And the law actually is quite limited in terms of scope. It only deals with women in workplaces or work-related incidents and in training and education.
But I have an advice for this person asking a question. She can also file for unjust vexation under the revised penal. It's a criminal case, and unjust vexation pag laging the green jokes, it can amount
It could
to
really,
that.
if it would really offend you, All right, Fran is asking, I've been noticing some discrepancies in the office in the last 2 years. I had one office mate who got engaged and another who got pregnant, and my boss treated them differently compared to those who are single. He gave them more work and has been more critical towards their mistakes, if any. Now, can this be a form of harassment? It's so subjective, no?
It's so
a little
difficult,
yeah. Kasi,
How can you even prove that it
Yeah.
was connected, right? Because
Yeah.
some bosses can just say,
Yeah.
no, there was just a
There's
lot
just-
of work and I was just giving them more work.
Yeah,
So
or
it's hard
pro-
to even prove the connection sometimes.
Because some projects are, for example, myself, I have some employees. If I assign a project, sometimes that project entails more work than another
Yeah.
project that another
Yeah.
person is working on. So,
Yeah, and usually there's a reason why you assign people to certain jobs. It
Yes.
also has to do with the capacity and
Yeah.
things like that. So on the face of it, it's very hard to comment.
yeah, kasi it's
Yeah.
possible that the pregnant woman was probably more capable.
But assuming they're able to prove in this case that the boss was really giving more work to those who are engaged or got married because, of course, as a form of discrimination, what remedies do they have here?
Remedies. Well, they can, if there's no illegal dismissal or they're not told that
Yeah.
they're dismissed, that's kind of tough to
it would have to to
Yeah.
prosper, no?
Yeah.
Oo, but what ground can they file if they have like some proof talaga na
talagang discrimination
yeah,
on
that
the
there is
distribution
really
of work.
discrimination in the distribution
Yeah.
of work
Giving
and that
them
they're
more
being
work.
given more work and basically more unfriendly environment in the workplace because of
Yeah.
that. Is there any type of remedy that they can file a case against this employer?
The Magna Carta of Women, I think, if I remember correctly, has this provision saying that women workers, particularly if they are pregnant, cannot be made to work yung mga difficult types of work. Cannot be made to carry heavy
But this
things.
is the
But
problem
it's
with this
so
is this
difficult.
just giving additional workload and it has nothing to do with them
Exactly.
being pregnant. They were just engaged and then got married. So
Yeah.
wala ba talaga silang remedy? Parang natahimik yung mga guests natin.
Kasi
But
in our case, you know,
a matter of evidence.
Yes.
you know, sometimes for me,
But what ground?
for me, when I give work to one of my employees, it's actually a reward. Not because, not for anything, but it's just a recognition that I can
Recognition.
rely on her more.
Yes.
If a person has more work in my office, that means in fact, yung mga medyo walang work, sila yung nag-question na parang, oh, I'm being discriminated on kasi I'm not being given any work,
Yeah,
di ba?
yeah.
So I guess it depends. I would hazard a guess. It probably depends on the circumstances, on the facts of the case, right?
Making the connection is the most difficult thing.
Yeah.
But I guess one thing we have to clarify in this case, it's not harassment. I mean, wala ka tayong ganung batas
Yeah.
na it's going
No,
to be
more work is
type of
harassment.
harassment.
Yeah.
No, I don't think
But
so.
I guess discrimination in the workplace can be a ground.
Kasi karamihan ng sinasabi sa discrimination sa 6725 is on wage. So, on account of sex.
Yes, or on account
Also
of being
promotion,
female.
training
Training.
opportunities, scholarships, and training. So,
Right.
walang area na masisilip na pwedeng gamitin.
Oo,
So, doon ang discrimination. Training,
Wages.
promotion. All right. Okay.
Scholarships.
Okay, so I guess the volume of work is not discrimination per se. no?
More
You
and
have to-
more work. Okay. A lot of interesting topics, especially since we're talking about work and women in particular in the workplace.
Yeah.
But I guess we're also starting to recognize gaps
Yes,
because of this
that's
conversation and the questions from our viewers. But for now, we'll have to take a short break. Legal Help Desk will return after these messages. There are several laws that cover the basic and special rights and needs of women employees, and these laws must be met by companies. Unfortunately, many have neglected to cover the basic rights, benefits, and privileges of their employees, especially their female employees, such as the case of Anna.
Nag-work na ako sa isang telecommunication company for almost 2 years na. This May 2012. So, may naging problems ako dito sa company namin. So, at first, for mga first few years, hindi namin nakikita yung mga namin problem eh. Pero napapansin na namin na parang nagiging madalas na. Yun, doon na kami gumawa ng way kahit paano para. Pag una ka doon, 6 months, 6 months. So after 6 months, pag itutuloy ka pa rin nila, 3 months, 3 months na. Pero ngayon, recently, naging 1 month na lang yung pag-extend nila. And then, di na namin alam kung may extend po kami for another month. Kumbaga, assurance namin, 1 month kami na dun sa company. And also, hindi sa 13 month, like, best na rin kami nag-request kung pwede din, kung may payslip kami, kasi nga parang doubtful kami doon sa nakukuha namin, pero hindi sila nagpo-provide. Maliit na bagay lang yan, pero kasi di ba karapatan natin yan, like sige natin 68 pesos lang yan, karapatan mo yan, pinasok mo yan for 1 hour, di ba? So, yun, dapat talaga binibigay nung company ko na dapat na natatanggap ng mga employee nila. Pero dito sa amin kasi wala kaming laban. Like, kung magko-complain kami, 3 times na nangyari na hindi na isasama, 4 times, 5 times, wala lang, ganun lang. Yung company namin, usapan ng mga regular by this quarter na lang, dinaalas na sila. Pero nakakuha sila ng benefits doon. So, pero kami mga, as project based, wala lang. Kung hanggang March ka lang. Wala kang makukuha ang benefit from us. Parang gano'n. Dito sa company, sana maiayos sila. Kung may magti-take over man na bagong company, maayos na nila. Hindi na nila madala kung ano yung naging problem ng company before. Para, kasi diba, dapat alagaan din nila yung mga employees nila.
You're still watching Legal Help Desk on the Solar News Channel. And with us are Ms. Evelyn Dita Manangan of the Bureau of Workers with Special Concerns of the Department of Labor and Employment, and Ms. Beth Angsioco, National Chairperson of Democratic Women's Society of the Philippines.
Ayan. So we heard the case study, si Ana, and it seemed from her narrative, parang extend lang yung employment niya.
So basically,
on a month-to-month basis.
Umpisa 6 months, and then nagiging 3 months, now month-to-month na. So it's basically not even a contractual arrangement, but it sounds like they're kind of like made probationary employees that never become regular employees. So maybe...
Pero di ba the law actually says that if you have worked for 6 months, then you automatically becomes
a regular employee.
Is that confirmed?
So Ms. Evelyn, I think you can clarify this.
Is it 6 months now?
Is in the first place, so after you work for 6 months, do you become a regular employee?
Used to be, but we have this fixed term employment.
Yes, that's
they have these other forms of contracts.
Yeah.
So perhaps if they feel so aggrieved about the situation, they can always report the case or get information from our nearest regional office.
So, that
they can study if it's really a legal fixed-term employment or diba? Kasi sometimes pag fixed-term, it means contractual kasi yung nature ng trabaho. That, for instance, if I'm going to ask you, Rod, to write a program for an application, if I'm a software company, then I say you have a year to develop this application.
That's fine.
That's fine. That's contractual. But in this case, if they're, for instance, a call center or a department store, why will you be given just 6 months and then you get renewed for another month and then another month when the work is continuing, right? So they, I guess, have to report this to, where can they report this type of arrangement?
It's also to the nearest regional office or field office of the DOLE.
So they can study
NCR,
if it's legal or not.
NCR Manila, we have a field office there. If it's in Makati, there's another
There's a field office there, and then normally may officer of the day who will guide them.
Officers who will attend to queries and even complaints.
And I have a question in relation to this. Miss Evelyn, Anna was mentioning that they don't feel confident about reporting this or complaining because they feel na, one, nothing's going to happen. It's not going to be addressed. And second, I guess they're afraid na if you report, you might get fired and just replaced. So is there a way to report to the regional office so they can just study if this arrangement is legal without being disclosed, without their identities being revealed at first?
I think anonymous can be done, anonymous complaint, or they can go directly. And we can always say, they can always say that it should not be reported, just for information.
Yeah, but for their information that they have, they seem to have at least a right to file a case. You're granting them, giving them advice on whether they have a basis on their complaint. Okay. Now, there was a question, Ms. Beth, regarding the Magna Carta law that for women that you were discussing earlier. I think there was a question actually in our studio whether when it comes to the informal sector, you were mentioning that 25 million people are still, are still part of that. Can you just clarify that whether they're already covered or not? They're not yet covered as we speak, right? There's still a bill.
No, there is no law that actually sets labor standards for workers in informal sector. Now, just to explain a bit about who these workers are, they are actually the people we see on the streets, the vendors, the newspaper vendors, those who run sari-sari stores.
What about those who sell online?
There is no, for as long as there is no formal employee-employer relationship, and that...
How about kasambahay? The kasambahay?
The kasambahay, there is a kasambahay law kasi. The bill only covers the on-call babysitters, on-call kasambahay, on-call drivers, things like that.
Yung mga freelance.
Yeah, yung mga freelance. Even, for instance, in the movie industry or in media, those who are PA, on-call, what you call these makeup artists, beat players, they are considered to be workers in the informal economy. So it's a huge group of workers. Usually, particularly those in the communities, they don't have any protection. For instance, they're not, basically they don't have social security. It's ironic because the mandate of the social security system is to universal coverage, diba? That's the mandate. But if you are self-employed, for instance, and you want to be a member of the social security system, the irony is that you have to pay double what a normal employed person actually pays, because you don't have an employer that will carry the employer's share. So you shoulder that. What if you're magtititinda ng taho? What if you're a simple lavandera? You cannot do that. So that bill that we're pushing for will provide for customized benefits, because these workers are willing to pay, except that let's not punish them naman with paying more pa than those who are formally employed.
Because they also make less.
Yeah, because
Hindi
they
na nga
also
sila
make less.
secure. Hindi na nga sila secured, and then we'll make them pay pa higher, di ba?
Exactly. The bill also provides for representation, for instance, because as we speak now, when we speak of workers, usually we refer to those in the formal setup. But we do not generally consider those who are outside of the formal setup. And therefore, they don't have a voice. For instance, in SSS, there is no seat for somebody from the informal economy, and in other government offices. The thing is, I recognize that one of the problems is data. And therefore, the bill provides for a simple way of accreditation and registration for these workers. So we really know who these workers are and how they can contribute to society, because they are there, they are willing to pay, they are willing to contribute, but at the same time, government should also be able to provide for their rights.
Now, Ms. Evelyn, I have a question about, again, yung mga nag-engage or getting married while being part of the workforce. Earlier, we talked about if you're just being harassed, in a sense, or being unfairly treated just because you just got engaged or you got married. Now, in terms of people refusing to hire you because you just are newly engaged or married, and I think normally this is linked to the potential of the women having kids soon.
Yes.
Is that a form of discrimination as well? If, for instance, during the hiring process, during the interview process, you have an employer who refuses to hire you because they find out that you're just engaged or you just got married.
This is part of the proposed bill,
Yes.
the past Congress, because at the moment, hiring, I mean, there's no employer-employee relationship yet as when you're still, what you call this,
An applicant.
applicant.
Yes.
So we have the management prerogative concept. So it's so really difficult to say that
There was
she has a
discrimination.
remedy and she's been discriminated. But we do recognize that women are discriminated in terms of
Actually, to be honest, I've experienced that myself. They didn't say that they weren't gonna hire me, but I've come across some law firms that are very vocal about saying that, oh, for our litigation department, we prefer to hire males. We're looking for more male applicants because they're we want males, if they're going to court, we feel more comfortable
Yes.
that they're males. And then usually the questions pa are about, oh, so you're single, are you gonna, do you have a boyfriend? Do you plan to get married soon?
Yeah.
And do you have kids? And I overheard one partner saying that they prefer married with kids already, or sobrang bata pa na matagal, wala pang plans na magpakasal soon, because they're worried that they're gonna be,
gonna
of
get
course,
married.
trained,
Yeah.
and then in the middle of important cases or transactions, they suddenly go on maternity leave,
Yeah.
and then, of course, they can't keep up with the male counterparts or the male lawyers in the firm.
Of course,
Funny,
that's
and how do you handle that?
discrimination.
There is.
Yes.
Yeah.
But
But
then
is there-
again, if you're
Discrimination
applying
back.
pa lang, it appears that you
Exactly.
can't do anything about it.
Yeah, because there is no relationship at all. You're not an employee, and
Not
therefore
yet,
you're
oo.
not covered by the,
They can
by
always
the
deny.
protections
No?
of the
They
law.
can always deny that. They can always deny. Well, I didn't hire her because of some other reason.
Yeah.
Or
That
even
doesn't-
not
thing-
deny, according to Miss Evelyn. Of course, I think this management prerogative
Yes.
Yeah.
doctrine
Yes.
where
So
But the
unfortunately,
thing
but
is,
yeah.
the reason why it's so hard is it's because in the country, I think there is no or virtually very little recognition that women's reproductive roles, getting pregnant, giving birth, are actually social functions. They are actually, because if we all don't get pregnant and don't give birth,
What happens?
well, what happens to the Filipino the nation, di ba? But what I'm saying is that the same way that we were advocating before for better maternity benefits, the premise is because women's getting pregnant and giving birth should be looked at by society as a social responsibility also.
Yeah. So in other words, as an employer, you should factor that in already.
Yes, yes.
Now,
but it's
I
not like
have
that.
a question about leave, since we're talking about giving birth and, of course, mothers being the carers or caregivers in the family.
Yes.
I'm sure, Rod, you know this, you were probably taken care of more by your mom, no, than your dad? Or no?
Just to be politically correct, it was balanced.
Ah, wow.
No, yeah, you're right. No, absolutely. Because my father was working, yeah.
Yes, earlier we were talking about maternity leave.
Yeah.
So for natural or normal births, it's 60 days with pay, and for cesarean, it's 78 days.
Yeah.
What other leaves are available? Someone asked me on Twitter earlier, is there a dysmenorrhea leave? Because that's also specific to women,
Yeah,
but it
that's
happens
right.
every month for some people.
Yeah.
So is there a dysmenorrhea
You
leave?
can take a sick leave.
Yeah,
Take a sick leave, okay.
leave.
So,
No,
But I know that there are unions who are actually able to negotiate for.
Although me as an
such a
employer,
thing.
I kind of take that into consideration. If that's a, and of course.
But of course, you still deduct that from their sick
Yes,
leave.
I mean,
so parang
yeah.
kawawa naman yung mga babae, no? It's not
no.
that their own choosing na
Kasi more
they
often
want
than not,
dysmenorrhea,
more often than
diba?
not, they don't get sick
Exactly.
naman for 15 days in a
Oo.
year. So
Yeah.
we just kind of remove that. But I have another question regarding sicknesses and illnesses. I think there is a law. I believe it might be the Magna Carta law, where regarding gynecological diseases
Yes.
and surgeries. Can you
Yeah.
expound on that a little bit more?
The provision in the Magna Carta of women is that if you're a woman and you had, for instance, an operation, gynecological problem, then you're entitled to 2 more weeks of leave.
Okay.
And these 2 months. Sorry, I'm sorry, Eb.
2 months, okay.
2 months of leave on
Yeah.
top of what you already have. And these
are paid
for
leaves?
yes,
Paid leaves.
fully paid.
Fully paid,
It's fully paid by the employer. It's very clear in the Magna Carta.
Okay.
It's spelled out. And then the only condition is that the woman should have been able to work for at least 6 months in the last 12 in the last year.
Okay.
In the last 12
right.
months. So that is another kind of
Another leave, special leave.
Because yes.
Can you give an example of these gynecological conditions that would entitle you to this additional 2 months leave?
For instance, if you have some women have
Ovarian cysts or
cyst
tumors,
and you
or-
had to remove it. I guess that's one of those
Was there anything
conditions.
regarding, I guess, a surgery? You're talking about
Yeah.
surgery of
Dapat
the reproductive
surgery.
organs of a woman. And doesn't apply to men, of course. No?
Well, unless you have an ovary.
Rod,
Just checking.
trying to be creative, nag-iisip na ng
And
mga
it's the
ways
Magna
to get a
Carta of women,
gynecologist.
Rod.
We can also have surgery in our
Yeah.
reproductive organs. That's my...
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
but it's
true.
the Magna Carta of women we're
Right.
talking. It's
Okay.
only for women. Excuse
For women.
me. Sayang.
So, amin, okay.
Sayang.
Ordinary sick leave sa amin. Ordinary sick leave.
What if
Okay.
parental leave you mentioned earlier? Now, if the mother, because both parents are working, if the mother is the one na mas hands-on about taking care of the children and one of the children gets sick, what type of leave can they take? Na hindi vacation leave, hindi sick leave, what can they get?
Parang ang alam ko lang at this point, what I know is the provision of the single
Solo
parents act.
But if
So,
you're married, you cannot
yeah.
get any leave
Unless sa CBA
I see.
meron.
Unless CBA
CBA,
nga.
yeah.
sa collective bargaining agreement.
All right.
Okay.
Okay, we have a few more questions no? Before we wrap up from our viewers. Lina asked, I underwent a dilation and curettage, is that correct? Curettage procedure last February and filed for a leave at work. My initial leave of 2 weeks was approved, but I had to get a 2-week extension because I was still anemic. But our company doctor didn't approve of the extended leave as part of my Magna Carta claim. Can you please clarify this? Is this valid? The company only paid me for 60 hours or 80 hours of work as part of my benefits. Is that valid? The employer should have paid for the full amount, right?
I don't know if DNC
Under
is
our
considered.
guidelines, what should follow, what the employer should follow is what the doctor would certify.
Yes.
So you are entitled to 2 months maximum for a year. So if the doctor says 2 weeks lang, 2 weeks lang talaga. But if there has to be an extension because, as she said,
There's
A dilation, I would imagine, is a procedure for...
Is
Is this considered a gynecological
Yeah, is it a gynecological
Yeah, that's
condition?
the first
Is it?
question.
Yeah.
Raspa yata
I
yun,
don't
di ba?
know.
Yeah,
Raspa,
you don't know.
oo.
It is, okay.
Perhaps she had a
Curettage.
miscarriage.
There's also curettage.
Yeah.
They mentioned curettage, okay.
Yeah.
So for a miscarriage, the procedure that follows it, is it considered part of a maternity leave or gynecological condition?
maternity leave.
Maternity
Kasi
leave.
you're entitled to maternity leave, including miscarriage.
Okay, so 60 days.
60 days.
And then if she gets an extension, kailangan siguro i-prove niya na it's a part, it falls under the gynecological procedure to entitle her to an additional 2 months.
Okay. Just a clarification though regarding that. When it comes to maternity leaves, does the law require that the employer will pay her during, is it a paid leave? In other words, is maternity leave a paid leave or does she claim against SSS?
It's a claim against
Yeah.
SSS.
Oh, okay.
But the employer can pay in advance
Yeah.
Okay.
and
When you
reimburse
say
it
can,
from the
is
SSS.
it can or he must pay in advance?
I think must pay.
Must pay in advance. And then the employer then can claim against sa
Yes,
SSS.
SSS.
All right, okay.
We have another question from Tony. I had an abnormal uterine bleeding last January. My doctor's advice was to rest for 60 days. I filed for medical leave and it was approved, but while on leave, I was forced to resign by my superior. This was the first time I was absent or filed for medical leave in my 11 months of being with the company. Can they do this to me since I haven't been with them for 1 year? Ito yung pinag-uusapan kanina na you have to have at least work for 12 months.
6 months of the 12 months.
6 months of the 12
6 months of the 12 months. Then she falls. She falls under that. Was it
Yeah,
11
she
months?
falls under that. I
She's-
think,
oh.
if that is the consideration, yes.
And
Yeah.
she doesn't mention that she underwent any surgery.
Yeah.
Because
No.
the important thing is surgery.
Yeah, she had to be absent because of a type of condition where she had uterine bleeding.
Yeah.
And
But,
so,
there was no
and then
surgery.
she,
It seemed like there was no
I didn't hear,
surgery.
parang wala sa question yung surgery, but she had to be absent for medical conditions because of this.
Yeah.
And she was dismissed.
But
So
then-
ano yung remedy niya dito? Is it
I
illegal
don't
dismissal?
understand that. I don't understand that forced. She was forced to resign because there is no forced resignation. It cannot be done.
a forced
It should be-
resignation amounts to illegal dismissal,
exactly.
right?
Right.
So in this
Exactly.
case, can she complain of illegal dismissal?
I think she should seek help sa DOLE.
Yes. Kasi may mga
Because-
causes naman that's just or authorized. So, maaaring ito.
From what she says, it looks like that's illegal dismissal from the way she said things. Yeah.
And in terms of absences, what would be a just cause for dismissing a person, a worker who's been absent? How many days normally, or what type of absences would justify an employer to dismiss an employee?
It would really depend on their company policy.
policies.
But if there is gross negligence in the performance of her duty or his duty, for that matter, kahit males din naman, that constitutes one of the just cause.
But in this case, her leave was approved.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's
so
that's the
that's the-
problem.
that's the problem there.
Possible,
possible case.
kailangan
legal dismissal.
ireklamo niya.
Yeah, so Tony should go to one of the regional offices of Department of Labor and seek help because it might have been illegal dismissal.
Right. Now, from Twitter naman, we have this question from Denise. And she asks, I am a lesbian and I applied for a job opening and passed the pre-interview. But upon learning of my sexual orientation, I never heard from them again. Can this be classified as discrimination? Again, prior to prior to hiring.
Prior to hiring.
Very difficult
And,
to prove.
is that,
yeah.
paano yun? What case does she have?
She's not yet an employee.
Yeah, there's no employer
Prerogative.
So,
relationship.
prerogative pa rin.
Yeah.
So basically, if you
same.
have someone not hiring because ayaw nila ng homosexuals or lesbians, the applicant cannot do anything.
Unless the non-discrimination bill for LGBTs is approved.
It's approved. Okay. Yeah.
What if you're discriminated as an employee, empleyado ka na, you're discriminated because you're lesbian? Is that a form of discrimination under labor laws?
So far, there's no law that covers discrimination on account of sexual orientation. So that's also part of the
Magna
bill
Carta,
that they're fighting for, including protection to the LGBT.
But for lesbians, I think the Magna Carta of Women will work and can work because all forms of discrimination and all forms of abuse actually is covered
The
by
current Magna Carta or the one for
the
the-
Magna Carta of Women.
Of women now. right?
Now,
So
the
it-
one
it
that's
can-
in effect.
So it can work.
Yeah, it can work. I think it can work. She should look at the
Look at that.
If there's an
case,
employer-employee
Yeah.
relationship.
If there's an
If you're
employer-employee
already
relationship.
employed.
if you are already employed.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, just a quick one, because again, we've already covered the Kasambahay law in another episode, no? But just for the sake of, since they are women and most of them are women and they fall under, the working women class, can you just briefly, ma'am, just summarize some of the new benefits of women under the Kasambahay law?
Well, under the Kasambahay law, the most important thing is membership in the social security system,
Yeah.
pag-ibig and PhilHealth.
An employer is supposed to contribute.
They're supposed to contribute to everything, unless the
Unless the salary
salary
is
is
5,000 and
5,000
above. If you're in the
there will be
NCR.
a sharing of contributions. Also, they should be covered by a contract of employment. There will be a pay slip. They have to be registered also in the barangay.
Yeah, right.
And that the DSWD, in coordination with the local government like the barangay, should be there to assist abused kasambahay. So they should be involved in the rescue and rehabilitation of the abused kasambahay and provide services, and also dole to provide possible employment if they want to be employed again in another setting.
Okay, that's good to clarify. And finally, we have another question from Laurel. My friend got sick and called her boss that she will be absent that day. The boss told her to get a medical certificate from the doctor. When she presented the certificate, the boss refused it, saying that since the doctor told her that she needed to be admitted for 5 days in the hospital. But when my friend filed for a sick leave, the boss did not approve it. We don't understand why. Can we file for a case with this?
I'm not too...
Parang what happened was,
Not too clear with
she
the
filed
question.
for leave, and then the medical, humingi ng medical certificate, and then
Yeah.
the medical
Certificate
certificate said she
5
had to be
days.
admitted for 5 days,
Yeah.
and now the boss did not want to approve that leave because I guess
see.
ang
Okay.
tagal,
I got it.
5
Now I got
days.
it. Okay.
Yeah.
So is there something that they can file to complain about this, that she's not being given medical leave?
As per the medical certificate. Diba?
Yes.
So if she's a regular employee, she's supposed to be entitled to leaves, di ba? And yung 5 days ngayon, kahit yung service incentive leave lang, is already 5 days. And that can be used for that. I don't understand why.
Yeah.
But I think I kind of understand her just because in my experience working for other law firms, usually you have an internal company policy that says you cannot really go on vacation leave, lalo na pag vacation leave, without the approval of the management. Either, and you're usually the partner that you always work with. So in some companies, they also have this internal process that yes, you have, for instance, 15 days, but you have to ask for approval.
Yes,
so in
that's
this
true.
case, if our viewer here, the one who's asking the question, was saying that she filed for a leave, and maybe because it's their internal policy, even if she has it among her credits now, she has 5 days left, 10 days, but the boss does not want to approve this. What type of case can she file to complain about the boss withholding the approval to get her leave entitlement?
But they should be, we have these humane conditions of work that should be provided to the employee. If she's sick, then I think they should
Should be allowed.
give consideration.
And then can they approach the Department of Labor for this?
Request for assistance or including money claims can be addressed by the DOLE.
Okay.
But
so regional office na naman, they can go.
but I think that the first thing that she should do is to, take care of her health first. Whether the boss, if she really needs it, whether the boss approves it or not, if she's sick, I don't think she's going to be productive then in the work.
So regardless of the approval, go take a leave, have yourself checked, and of course
protect yourself first. Take care of yourself
first and foremost.
All right, that's very good. Very good advice. Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Unfortunately, that's all the time that we have for tonight. We would like to thank our guests, Ms. Evelyn Lita Manangan of the Bureau of Workers with Special Concerns, and Ms. Beth Angsioko, National Chairperson of the Democratic Women's Society of the Philippines, for being with us tonight. I'm Attorney Rod Nepomuceno.
And I'm Attorney Karen Jimeno. If you have any questions on our topic for tonight, you may share them on our Facebook and Twitter pages. Join us again next Monday as we discuss your legal rights here on Legal Help Desk. Good night. Emphasizes how important women's rights are in terms of being in the workplace, because our Department of Labor has a specific division just for women's concerns.
Yes.
So, Ms.
maybe,
Evelyn-
Ms. Evelyn, can you highlight maybe some of the pertinent laws that are, I guess, very key laws that will protect women in the workplace?
One of the important breakthroughs is the repeal of Article 130 and 131 of the Labor Code, which used to be the women are not allowed to work at night, at certain periods at night, from 10 in the evening to 6 a.m. of the following day. But with the developments now, it has been repealed and we have a new law on the protection of night workers. So the protection does not only extend to women, but also to males. So there are certain requirements and benefits that should be accorded to men and women alike.
So, Ms. Evelyn, just to, I guess, summarize the importance of this law. Now, all workers, whatever sector, if they're women workers, they're allowed to work late at night, meaning yung mga night shift.
Yes.
Pwede na. And this is very important, lalo na sa BPO industry, where sometimes the work hours are baliktad. They follow other countries, so they start work at 11 p.m., 12 a.m. So now, if your shift is that late and you're a female worker, or this even applies to male workers, are you entitled to the night differential pay?
Yes, the night shift differential pay is required, and that, of course, there are certain provisions, especially to women workers. There's still the protection given to them, especially to pregnant women.
What types of protections, Ms. Evelyn?
Like, for example, they can be relieved from doing this night duty if there is available time or schedule for them. and that they should be protected against discrimination. That is, they should not be dismissed just because of this reason.
So if they refuse, let's just say a woman is pregnant and she refuses to work at night, but most of the operations of, let's say, that BPO is at night, can she claim that, I guess, can she invoke this law and say that, no, you can't dismiss me, even if the operations of the BPO is mainly at night?
Well, if there is no alternative shift, then they could
Mas mababa yung babae kaysa doon sa lalaki. So ngayon, ini-equalize natin by providing several laws for the protection of women.
However, in the private sector, female employees are still suffering from discrimination and abuse. According to a World Bank report, as of 2010, only 30% of medium-sized enterprises and 20% large enterprises have female managers, and that women employees earn only 76% of their male counterparts.
Under the Magna Carta of Women also, yung faculty member na babae, public man o private school, nagbuntis outside of marriage, dati tinatanggal sa trabaho, ngayon hindi na pwedeng tanggalin yan because that would be discrimination against women.
Many experts have voiced out that though there have been improvements throughout the years, there is still room for improvement, especially in the workforce. In situations like these, what can female employees do to uphold their basic and special rights and benefits in the workplace? What are the laws that state these rights, benefits, and privileges? What government agencies oversee and enforce? Compared to most countries in the world, the Philippines is more open towards providing women with the same opportunities as men, with women holding top positions in the government, including presidents, senators, congresswomen, and cabinet members.
In discrimination, that's the most common. No? At ang sabi ng Korte Suprema, declared in the Bible itself, is the universal norm that women should be treated with love and respect. But through the ages, men have responded to that injunction with indifference due to the hubristic conceit that women constitute the inferior sex. So ang tingin palagi ng lipunan kasi
Enforce these rights and privileges. Good evening. You're watching Legal Help Desk on the Solar News Channel. This show is about making the law work for you by giving legal advice on topics that matter to you. I'm Attorney Karen Jimeno.
I'm Attorney Rod Nepomuceno. Tonight, as a continuation of our celebration of Women's Month, we will discuss your legal rights on the topic of women's rights in the workplace.
Our guests for tonight are Ms. Evelyn Lita Manangan, Chief Labor and Employment Officer of Women Workers Development Division of the Bureau of Workers with Special Concerns of the Department of Labor and Employment, and Ms. Beth Angshoko, National Chairperson of Democratic Women's Society of the Philippines. Good evening, ladies.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Beth.
Good evening.
Is it Evelyn? So we call you Evelyn. All right. Thank you for joining us tonight. And again, in celebration of Women's Month, we focus on this. And I think we start off by really maybe focusing on specific laws, particularly in maybe perhaps Evelyn sa Department of Labor or labor laws. Can you maybe highlight?
I guess this